Fate often arrives quietly. Sometimes it sounds like the ring of a coin on stone. But what if the turn of a coin was more than luck? What if every toss was a whisper from fate itself? And what if somewhere in the world there existed a relic that could tilt the odds just enough to change the outcome of lives, wars, and destinies without anyone ever realizing who dealt the cards? Meet Chance, a runaway trickster relic, and the severed limb of a malicious god who once treated the world as a cruel game. No kingdom commands it, no temple claims it. It drifts through the world unseen, flipping its coin, nudging fate, and quietly stacking the odds where chance believes they belong. A gambler might win the impossible bet. A traveler might take the right road without knowing why. A villain might stumble at the worst possible moment. Chance doesn't preach or command, it plays. It nudges the odds or cheats the game just enough to see what happens next. A villain looks the wrong way at the worst moment. A hero draws the card they needed. When the coin spins high and lands with a soft metallic ring, the world remembers it as luck. But Chance knows it just made the next move.
And welcome, traveler, to the Tavern on the Morrow, where all come to gather at the threshold to adventure. I'm your host, Ben Grimm, and I invite you to stay a while and learn about the latest addition to my gaming workshop, a living sentient relic named Chance. Chance is based, like a previous character, on my memories of playing Vecna Lives back in the day. So this is another Vecna-themed character, and again, me sort of tapping into the zeitgeist, I guess, of Vecna in our culture, thanks to Stranger Things. But one of the things I remember is Vecna wasn't really around much in that module. It was mostly just trying to recover two artifacts that, if used improperly, would bring Vecna back to life, the Hand of Vecna and the Eye of Vecna. And I thought it'd be kind of fun to take those two artifacts from that adventure and give them a little bit of their own story, make them a little bit more fun than just the menacing evil. And so that's where I came up with Chance, where the Hand and Eye have merged and become their own thing, really. Although, again, this is only loosely based on Vecna. There's no direct lore in regards to that. But I thought it'd be kind of fun to create a trickster archetype with a bit of an agenda. And a moral compass that would make Chance sort of an interesting character to roleplay, whether you wanted to approach it from a character or GM standpoint. The tools here are viable, whether you're using Daggerheart or D&D, so there's a write-up for either one of them, depending on which system you prefer. But let's take a look. We go now to the gaming room of the tavern, where a worn card table waits beneath the lantern glow. The mugs have been pushed aside, and the usual clatter has softened to a curious hush. A small circle of gamblers leans close, watching the empty table as if something unseen has already taken its seat. A single coin spins lazily across the wood, catching the candlelight as it turns. The room holds its breath, waiting for it to fall, and somehow knowing the result will mean more than just money changing hands. It is no longer just a game, but a wager waiting for Chance to make the first move. Chance appears as a severed hand of deep mossy green, its surface mottled like aged stone and lichen. Fine golden cracks run across the fingers and palm, faintly glowing, echoes of the shattered god it once belonged to. Its long, narrow fingers move with unsettling precision, scuttling in a quiet, spider-like gait across the walls and ceilings, or curling inward when it hovers like a resting spider before it suddenly darts. In the center of its palm is a living eye whose iris shifts through small tarot-like symbols, crowns, towers, coins, swords, and scales. They rotate like cards in an unseen deck. When Chance flips its coin, the symbols glow and scatter briefly like spectral cards before fading. These symbols reflect its thoughts and emotions. A tower for danger, a coin for confidence, a scale for judgment, a crown for approval. Its behavior mirrors this nature. When wary, it creeps forward on two fingers like a hunting spider. When relaxed, it hangs upside down, quietly observing. When excited, its fingers tap like shuffling cards. And when frightened, it curls protectively around its eye before scuttling away. Chance carries an old silver coin, worn, smooth, and marked only by faint, nearly invisible runes along its edge. Its face appears blank until it's flipped. In motion, glowing words briefly appear across its surface,
warnings, remarks, or quiet bits of mischief, fading as soon as it's caught. But the coin is more than a voice. It is a fragment of divine probability, subtly tugging at fate whenever it spins. A villain stumbles, a lock clicks open, a hero gets a lucky break. To most, it's just luck, but in truth, chance is quietly tilting the odds. Long ago, a cruel god known as Zarveth the Final Dealer ruled over wagers, twisted fate, and the darker side of chance. To him, life was a game and mortals were pieces to be played. When he tried to cheat fate himself and claim control over all destinies, the other gods shattered him into relics. Fragments like the Heart of Fortune, the Crown of Final Odds, and the Palm of the Last Wager, scattered so he could never return. Though he faded into myth, secret cults still seek to gather the pieces of Zarveth and restore their god. Centuries later, a mage named Vale Turin hunted these relics, hoping to harness their power. Though warned never to unite them, he brought together the hand and the eye, using an enchanted coin to channel their magic. When he flipped the coin, it read, "Deal." The wards failed. The hand seized the eye, and instead of reforming the god, something new awakened. The parts chose differently. The being that rose was not Zarveth reborn, but a smaller, stranger creature. A floating hand with a living eye clutching the coin. Calling itself Chance, it fled into the night, no longer a servant of cruel fate, but a runaway relic determined to play the game its own way, and never let the final dealer return.
One of the things that I think can make Chance a lot of fun to play is that I workshopped a lot of goals for this quirky and odd character. It isn't just a play thing for the adventurers to kind of have around an oddball companion that's there in a passive sort of way. I kind of like the way that Chance has been created in that it has, I think, nuanced and interesting goals that can really sustain more than just one adventure, but possibly even the good part of a campaign. So first and foremost, one of the things that Chance wants to do is stay out of the grasp of this god that is trying, the Zarveth, and make sure that Zarveth does not reform. Even though Chance was born of pieces of this god, both the eye and the hand, Chance, for whatever reason, through some mysticism, or perhaps there was a shred of decency hidden in Zarveth somewhere, Chance is this charming prankster-like fellow. He can get up to mischief, but he has a good heart, essentially, in so much as a autonomous hand can have a heart. And so Chance seeks to do good. And beyond that, he has specific goals of making sure that the cult that is trying to reform Zarveth does not get a hold of it. So Chance is always running around and trying to avoid becoming, part of this sort of reforming god. And so if Chance gets wind of the cult being in the area and it's with the party, Chance will look for ways to sort of nudge the party in directions where they can antagonize the cult, where they can disrupt the cult's plans. To whatever power it can, it might try to rewrite maps or messages that would mislead the cult. And certainly it would try to direct the party of heroes if they're good. And Chance would spend some time getting to know the party before making this decision. But if Chance suspects that the party is made up of good people, it will nudge the party in the direction of trying to find those artifacts first. So through Chance's various antics, you have sort of a chance to kind of, the party is going to become in direct competition with this group of cultists who are trying to reassemble an evil god, ironically, while getting the aid of this quirky portion of that god. Some of the other relics that the party could end up being in competition for would include things like the Heart of Fortune, which of course would be Zarveth's heart. And I don't have stats for that, but there's sort of fun imaginative ways. If all the parts of Zarveth have some sort of sentience to them, then perhaps there's even some degree of competition or sort of infighting that could emerge from these other bits and pieces. But there's like the Tongue of Lies, which would be all of Zarveth's deception and nature. the crown of outcomes, the bones of the game. So that would be Zarveth's skeleton, and so these are the various things that Chance would want to recover first. Now, the interesting thing to play with is, does Chance want to destroy these things? Does he want to just separate them so far that they're nearly impossible to find? The one thing that Chance does not want is he does not want to put itself, or I don't know. Chance does not want to put itself in a position where there's a possibility of Zarveth reforming, which of course is one of the great dangers of the goal, because of course Chance doesn't want to sort of passively wait around for the other pieces to be found. Chance is out there looking for them with intention, doesn't really know what to do with them, except certainly knows that one of the things that does not want to have happen is the threat of reformation. And that's one of the reasons that Chance is going to be keeping an eye on the party the whole time, to get a sense of what their goals are, what their ambitions, what solutions they come up with to destroying, with the act of destroying these nearly divine or divine elements. So that can be definitely something I think is a lot of fun to play with. To that end, I also think it's worth noting that Chance, being just a generally good person, wants to champion the underdog. I mean, I think Chance sort of recognizes the underdog in its own story, and so when it recognizes characters, certainly players, that sort of fulfill that underdog role and also have a decent moral center, or at least a neutral moral center, because Chance is interested in swaying people who can be swayed. If Chance senses there's a chance to move, an opportunity to move someone in the direction of goodness, then they will do that. And they will sort of use that coin of theirs, that magical coin, to help the wavering NPC or PC in a direction that isn't just to Chance's benefit, because while Chance certainly has goals that serve its own ambitions in terms of not reforming Zarveth, Chance is also a good being. Like, it wants good to happen, not just for itself, but for really many people that it interacts with. So whenever it recognizes an underdog story, especially one when there's some sort of injustice involved, it's a really great opportunity for Chance to sort of take a proactive lay of the land, essentially, and try to manipulate things through subtle, twists of fate in the direction of something better happening, a better outcome for that character, for that player, so on. Of course, one problem that Chance has is that someone knows exactly what Chance is. Vale Turin, the mage that made Chance, is quite aware of what Chance is, to a certain extent, what Chance's capabilities and powers are, and knows that, maybe it knows what he did wrong when he got the ritual wrong the first time, and possibly wants this hand and eyeball back so he can finish what he started, except do it properly. And so Vale Turin is going to be an ambitious figure, someone else whom the PCs might interact with. He knows that Chance is a divine relic. He knows that it escaped his control, and he has a sense of how to find this thing because he knows what sorts of things to look for after some time looking for it. He may even believe, Vale Turin, and if we want to get into the whole Vecna thing, may believe that with these artifacts and possibly the other ones, he has the tools that he needs to form himself into a god. So if you wanted to play that whole idea of working these relics into creating a god or demigod, which would be consistent with the Vecna Lives narrative, then I think, Vale Turin sort of represents your best angle on that. Because, of course, Chance is trying to stop this. And he's going to do everything in his power to find the relics to either destroy or disseminate them. Vale Turin, on the other hand, is very much looking to collect them. And it might be an interesting twist on things if the party, especially if they're good, if they encounter Vale Turin first, and maybe he uses some manipulation or charm to convince the party that catching the relic and bringing it to him is in their best interests, or good, for example, and maybe then they have to choose between whether they listen to Vale Turin or whether they listen to Chance, and that could be for some fun role playing, because of course Vale Turin is going to be a eloquent human of some kind, or humanoid. Chance is a hand and an eyeball, and it has a fairly limited capacity for communication. The words that appear on the coin are limited. These are short phrases. And while you can get a sense of his mood, or its mood, from the eyeball, from the various symbols on the eye, that's not the same as full-fledged expression. And so largely, Chance has to be understood through its actions, while Vale Turin has the chance to really shape party perception with his words. And so I think he definitely represents a more classic villain that could interact with this trickster hero figure. And finally, sort of in many ways, sort of the most existential goal that Chance has is it doesn't necessarily know what it is. It has some understanding. It certainly knows what it wants in terms of stopping the reformation of Zarvith, but I don't think Chance necessarily knows how it came to be and what its place in the world is, because it's a disembodied hand with an eyeball in it. And so, what capacity does Chance have to have a community, friends, a life of purpose and meaning outside of the immediate goals of trying to, stop Zarvith from reforming? Let's say that's accomplished. What does that mean? Does Chance continue to exist with the adventuring party? Does it go off on its own in pursuit of other goals? Chance is trying to find its identity and purpose beyond the obvious. And this can be something that, for a GM, especially if you weave this being into the party, something that could develop over time, and I think a very clever and very powerful way, that this could be a fairly emotional character, in the sense that it doesn't know who it is yet. It doesn't really know why it exists. And that could be part of the fun of discovery. I think it's a really great plot hook, driven by a kind of doubt and a lack of understanding about its own nature that could be quite touching in a fantasy setting.
When role-playing Chance, consider adding some of these habits to add a little bit more character and personality to this unique relic. Coin fidgeting. Chance almost never stops playing with its coin. It spins it across knuckles, balances it on fingertips, or flips it lazily into the air while thinking. When it's bored, the coin might roll in slow circles across the table before snapping back into its grasp. Perching like a spider. When idle, Chance prefers to hang from beams, door frames, tree branches, or cave ceilings, suspended upside down with 2 fingers hooked over the surface. From there, it quietly watches everything below, the eye slowly turning as if studying the room. Creeping investigation. If something seems suspicious, Chance moves forward slowly on 2 fingers like a cautious spider. The eye narrows and studies the target closely, sometimes circling them before flipping the coin to reveal a judgment like liar, maybe, or safe.
Besides Chance's goals, you also want to keep in mind that as an active agent for doing good, Chance is going to be very reactive to whatever the alignment and ambitions of the party are. And I think you can play this either way. I mean, most parties tend to fall into the neutral to good range. They will sometimes murder hobo their way through life, but I think most parties will default towards doing heroic or semi-heroic things. Maybe I'm wrong about that. I don't know. But Chance is going to be watching, and if the party is good, it certainly isn't going to deny its own trickster nature. It's a bit of a prankster. So, for example, if the party's at the tavern, like the Tavern on the Morrow, but if the party's at the tavern and then, maybe the warrior's drinking an ale or something, Chance may like sneak in there, and if the warrior's like talking to someone else, he'll nudge the mug aside, so when the warrior reaches for it, the mug won't be there. Harmless little pranks like that are the kinds of things that Chance will do. Or maybe he'll rig the dice in favor of the hero who, for whatever reason, always rolls ones, and give that player an ego boost that they much need, a little bit of success that maybe they're lacking in their night. If there's someone that they have a little bit of a conflict with, maybe they'll do something as extreme as tying their shoelaces on their boots together while they're sleeping, and then setting off the wards at their camp at night, so that the hero gets up and then stumbles and trips and falls on their face and gets sort of a good laugh out of everyone else. But ultimately a harmless prank that is in no way going to ultimately affect, in a negative way, the outcome of the party. If Chance does use its magic to work with a good party, it's going to be in the form of like a benevolent gesture, something that will ultimately aid them. And I think that's one thing to keep in mind. Of course, with a neutral party, it's going to be a little bit different. I think the pranks will remain relatively harmless, because Chance at that point will be more inclined to sway the party to goodness, and might would want to might even tone back some of the pranks. Like if Chance senses the party is good, I think it's more likely to do sort of fun pranks. If Chance senses the party is somewhere in the middle, I think he's actually going to dial back his whimsical nature as much as possible, and that Chance really won't want to make anything happen that would upset a party that's on the fence. Now, again, it's a trickster nature. It's not unable to control itself, but it will look for opportunities to create fun and joy when it's possible. And if it seems to Chance like such an opportunity exists where something fun that can actually help sway a neutral party in the direction of goodness, that's the sort of joke or prank or action that would sort of make sense for chance in that kind of context. Of course, with evil parties, it's going to be a whole different ball of wax. And this is where it might be really interesting to employ a figure like Chance, who on the surface might just seem like a quirky companion artifact for a group of adventurers, but it might see an opportunity here to misdirect a party of evil adventurers and to a certain extent even manipulate it. And this is where the mischief may turn into something, I'm not going to use the word malevolent, but certainly not beneficial. If Chance does not like the kinds of choices the party is making, it will give them wrong information. It will steer them in such a way. It'll still try to organize events where maybe the party and the cultists or Vale Turin come into conflict, but it'll be more like, hey, instead of doing this for good, trying to organize it for selfish purposes, because if Chance suspects the party is a bunch of bad people, it will want to undo their fates just as readily as anyone else's. It will want to misdirect them. It will, if they come into possession of one of the artifacts, try to find ways to convince them to get rid of or destroy it through deception. Now, again, Chance is a fairly limited form of communication, so how does that play out? I don't know. When it comes to the kinds of pranks Chance might play on ruthless or cruel party members, people that he senses are doing bad things, Chance is going to take a little bit further. So maybe in the heat of battle, Chance makes sure to snap the scabbard shut on the warrior's sword, so that as the warrior tries to pull their sword free, it doesn't come free, or maybe even as malicious as putting in some kind of sticky substance into the scabbard so that the sword won't come free no matter what the warrior does, or throw away some of the magical components that the wizard needs. The pranks get a little bit more serious the more worrisome the behavior of the party becomes. And so I think Chance is a very mutable, driven character who doesn't have a static interaction with the party, but is going to be constantly assessing their goals, their actions, and their choices. And in this way, it can be a pretty powerful tool for GMs who are looking to, I don't want to use the word steer the party in a certain path, because I would hesitate to encourage anyone to do that, but want to remind the party that there are consequences for their actions. And I think that's maybe a better way to approach it, because sometimes I think evil parties get away with more than they should be able to get away with. And Chance can be just a small part of kind of reminding people that when you do bad things can often happen to you. So in summary, if the party is good, then Chance will be a helpful ally. He will be a supporter. His pranks will be there, maybe more so than in any other context, but they will be very harmless, gentle, playful pranks that really cause no meaningful damage to anyone, or even really not meaningful damage. These will be things that are fun and harmless, maybe a nuisance to someone who's especially, that paladin that doesn't like fun, might view Chance as a nuisance, but nothing more than that. With a neutral party, we're talking about a curious manipulator, someone who will try to steer the neutral party in the direction of good, assess them, and be a more patient, thoughtful, and cautious Chance than you're going to get with either extreme. And then, of course, with a violent party, we're talking about a Chance that is flat out going to sabotage that party's goals, a quieter Chance who will concoct the most sort of subtle but also detrimental pranks that it can come up with and use those in, key moments, with some mind for protecting itself, because after all, it will know that if it plays too many of these pranks, maybe even one is too many, that the party will turn on Chance very quickly. So it will be a cautious assessment and then finally an action that may end up being the last time the party sees Chance in any kind of beneficial or partnership kind of way.
In a frontier town known for its bustling gambling halls, rumors begin to spread about a series of impossible winning streaks. Ordinary travelers and laborers are suddenly beating seasoned gamblers. Dice land in unlikely patterns, and cards fall perfectly into the right hands. The owner of one of the largest gambling houses, furious and convinced someone is cheating, hires a party to uncover the trick behind the sudden wave of luck. As they investigate, the adventurers may notice odd details. A coin that seems to flip on its own, a brief shadow darting across the table, or a glimpse of a floating hand catching a coin in midair before vanishing. In truth, Chance has been secretly tipping the odds in favor of victims of the casino's own cheating practices. Elsewhere, the party encounters a group of strange travelers questioning villagers along the road. The group, actually cultists, asks unsettling questions. whether anyone has seen a wandering relic, a floating hand, or an eye set within a palm. Their search grows increasingly aggressive as they become convinced that the palm of the last wager has been spotted somewhere nearby. If the adventurers interfere with or drive off the cultists, they may notice something unusual watching them from the shadows, a floating hand clutching a coin. It flips the coin into the air, and when it lands, the glowing words, "Good bet," appear upon its surface before the hand cautiously approaches. In a nearby city, the party is approached by a reclusive and nervous mage named Vale Turin, who offers a generous reward for the recovery of a dangerous magical experiment that escaped from his laboratory. He describes the creature as a floating hand with a single eye embedded in its palm, claiming it is unstable and potentially destructive. Vale insists the relic must be returned to him immediately before it causes chaos. What he does not reveal is that he deliberately brought the divine fragments together in an attempt to harness their power, only to have them fuse and escape his control. If the party eventually encounters the hand, it may flip its coin and reveal a warning glowing across its surface. Don't trust him. We return now to the gaming hall of the tavern, where the card table still waits beneath its lantern glow. The coin that spun moments ago now rests flat against the worn wood, its faint metallic ring long since faded into the murmur of the room. For a brief moment, no one speaks. The gamblers lean in, studying the coin as if it might move again. Then the noise of the tavern slowly returns, chairs scraping, mugs clinking, laughter rising once more. Someone calls it a lucky toss. Someone else mutters about strange odds tonight. Cards are shuffled again, wagers placed, and the game resumes as though nothing unusual has happened. Yet a few players glance uneasily at the table, unable to say why the moment felt so deliberate. As the lantern sways overhead, the coin suddenly flicks into the air once more, caught by unseen fingers before it can fall. Somewhere nearby, a quiet Trickster Relic watches the game unfold. The sun symbol appears within the eye on Chance's palm. It is happy because, for now at least, the game goes on.